Hmm? You're serious?
Hey, what's up everybody, how's it going? It's Burke, aka Dansgo8, and it's time to talk Final Fantasy X once again. This is a video that kind of came to mind a few weeks ago, and I kind of sat down and wrote some notes for it. And it's something that I've always kind of wanted to discuss in commentary form, because I have a lot of Nosphere videos on my channel, and it's the first thing that I ever really uploaded when I started the channel. Most of you guys would never have watched those videos. They're from like between the years of 2008 to 2010, something like that. So other than maybe Pete the Player, who I have no doubt is probably watching this, yeah, most of you guys probably wouldn't have seen that stuff. But as you all know, I've said it maybe 8 million times, Final Fantasy X is my favourite game, and once I'd done normal playthroughs, I kind of looked around online for what else there is to do in this game, and I've discovered the idea of Nosphere, actually from Dark Kefka, who's also very well known for his Final Fantasy stuff. And I watched his videos and I was like, holy shit, this is really cool. Like, the ability to play through the game with Nosphere is pretty impressive. And little did I know that the Nosphere community had been around for about 10 years, almost, well, maybe not 10 years, but like 6 or 7 years before I ever even gave it a go. So it's a very established community, and if any Final Fantasy X Nosphere veterans are watching this, then you can definitely provide all the input that you want in the comments, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I won't cover, or stuff that I might just be plain wrong about. So I leave it up to the experts in the comments if they want to help contribute to this video. But yeah, why does this video exist? If you'd have maybe asked me in 2012, 2013, would you ever make a Nosphere related video to help people or to get people to try it, I would have said no, because Final Fantasy X was very old by that point, and not a lot of people, even among Final Fantasy X fans, were doing any Nosphere stuff, so I thought no one's really going to care. But since the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 remaster came out, and the PS Vita, a lot of people have either jumped back onto Final Fantasy X, or a lot of people have played it for the first time. And especially with the PS4 version, I think a lot of people would have done a playthrough, and maybe done 2 or 3 playthroughs, kind of got acquainted with the game, and maybe they put it to one side, or they're kind of longing to play it again. And I thought maybe Nosphere might be a good excuse to get people playing the game again, because Nosphere is something that, to the inexperienced player, to someone who's never tried it before, might seem very scary and daunting. It might take, they might think it takes an amazing amount of skill or mental dexterity to do, but really it doesn't. It's not as difficult as it sounds. And this video, the first part of it is just me trying to convince you to try a Nosphere game, and the rest of it is going to be just a few tips, not any kind of guide or anything like that, because I've already done a lot of Nosphere work. Like I said, I've got 2 playlists on the channel. One is Nosphere Rikku only with no overdrives, which is possible, and you can check that out in the playlist. I've got the boss battles there. And I've got a slightly longer kind of playlist for Nosphere Auron only, but that's going to take too long to explain. It's not technically a Nosphere, but he does have base stats. He's only learned Steal and Use for that playthrough, and that's also possible. So yeah, I don't have the time to do a playthrough from start to finish in Nosphere. I don't have enough fresh stuff to say. We've already been through everything there is to go through. So other than boss battle strategies, there's not too much to discuss, and there's already so many videos of that stuff that it's very easy to find. What I wanted was just an overall kind of, just a few little tips and tricks that will help you to get through, because I don't want people to just be spoon-fed everything, because I personally don't like playing through games that way myself, and especially with Nosphere, I would say part of the fun is coming up with the strategies yourself. Okay, so why might you even think of doing a Nosphere playthrough? Well, one, if you enjoy a challenge, then it's definitely something worth doing, because it is challenging the first time, for sure. I mean, once you've played through a Nosphere, you'll realise just how easy it is, and if you were ever to do it for a second time, you could do it with your eyes closed. Honestly, you'll have to trust me on this. So I would say it's relatively easy, easier than you might think. So don't be too scared by it straight away, but I would recommend that you play through the game once or twice before, at least. Well, definitely once, but 2 or 3 times maybe, to really get a handle on it. Final Fantasy X is turn-based, so it's not really that reliant on any kind of physical kind of stuff, like being able to do stuff quickly or to press stuff at the right time, timings, all that kind of stuff. Because it's turn-based, it really gives you a chance to slow things down and really plan your moves and how you're going to do stuff. So the turn-based aspect does kind of help with the no sphere grid type challenge. There's also so many guides out there. I mean, like I said, I first did no sphere grid maybe 2008, something like that. Yeah, 2007, 2008. But even by that time, there were people that had been doing it for 5 years. So written guides, video guides, boss battles, mechanics, strategies, everything you want is there. So if you find yourself struggling, there's so much help that you can receive that it's ridiculous nowadays. So that's there's no need to be scared, because there's just so much information that you can make use of. Another thing that might interest you is just, I mean, if you are just in general a fan of the game, it's going to give you a whole new appreciation for the way the battle system works. If you decide to play through with no sphere grid, obviously you're not going to have your stats to rely on, because I'm pretty sure most of us for the first playthroughs, we started to resort to really kind of cheap tactics when we got nearer the end. Either we power leveled and we defeated everything really easily, or, you know, we discovered a few easy tricks, used our aeons, used our overdrives and all that kind of stuff, and it was just, you know, it was a piece of cake. So playing through in no sphere grid gives you a whole new appreciation for how the game works, and, you know, if that side of it interests you, it's definitely worth jumping back in and trying a no sphere grid game. Another thing, in a no sphere grid game, every single boss in the storyline can be defeated. That's 100% certain. You can also defeat everything in the monster arena except for Shinryu, which is technically possible, but although I've mentioned this before, Shinryu, there's people who have claimed to, in inverted commas, defeated Shinryu with no sphere grid, but there is absolutely no video proof of it. The one video that does exist on YouTube, it's a hacked video. They've removed the ability to use Eraser. I personally think they removed the ability to use Shining as well, but that's hearsay. But yeah, other than Penance and Shinryu, you can defeat everything in no sphere grid. Literally everything. So that's an indicator of just how possible no sphere grid is. So other than 2 bosses, every single boss, even the optional ones, they're all defeatable. And obviously those of you guys that picked up the remasters, if you hadn't had access to the Dark Aeons before, you will now. So if you're feeling really adventurous, you can try the Dark Aeons with no sphere grid. It's a lot of fun. And finally, no sphere grid, to be honest, is really the entry-level challenge. One of the entry-level challenges in this game. If you do a no sphere grid playthrough and you end up enjoying it, then that's just you know, that's just the first in a whole line of different challenges that you can do. The amount of acronyms and, you know, different variations is astonishing, and still for a lot of them there's still quite a few guides around. So no sphere grid could be like the first step to many other challenges that is going to entertain you for a long time to come. Okay, so that's why you might be interested in doing a no sphere grid. Other than the fact that you just want an excuse to play the game again. I mean, that's probably one of the main excuses. That's why I started a no sphere grid challenge, and kind of it went from there. Thanks to that thought, I ended up creating this channel and everything that came with it. So technically, starting a no sphere grid challenge enabled me to have the channel that I have today. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so I've convinced you to try a no sphere grid challenge, and you're thinking, well, you know, if I get in trouble, I'll just use my summons. If I were you, I would not use summons. I'd make it a no summon game as well, because, you know, summons, they make life too easy. They're too much of a get out of jail free card. With boss battles, you can just charge up their overdrives and just let it rip, and that can get you through most of the toughest bosses anyway. So, you know, just don't do it, because it's one of those things where if you think, okay, I'll only use it when I'm in trouble, you'll use it once, you'll use it again, and it will make you lazy, and it will take away the fun of a no sphere grid game, if you ask me. So if you're going to take this on, especially for the storyline, just stay away from the summons. Do not summon. If you want to move on to Dark Aeons and do sexy things like that, then maybe you can get your summons back. But for the storyline, stay away from the summons, because it's just going to ruin the fun of a no sphere grid game, if you ask me. By the same virtue, I would also stay away from Riku's Trio of 9999 mix, because again, that's pretty much an easy way to one-shot almost every single boss, because you do that, and you also use Waka's attack reels if you get those as well, and that's 120,000 damage guaranteed every single time, and that's enough to beat almost every single storyline boss in the game. So if you have the trio move, then it's, again, life is too easy and there's no room left for strategy. So if I were you, I would do what is kind of nowadays the kind of standard first no sphere grid game, which is the no sphere grid, no summon, no trio or quartet of 9 game. So stay away from those two mixes, the quartet of 9 and the trio of 99999, and no summons, and I think that is the best way to do your first challenge run. Okay, so once the game gets going, all I'm going to do is just reel off a few things I took note of here. And if you ask me, if you're convinced to do a nose figure challenge and you want to give it a go, do not resort to any guides for strategy, if you ask me. In fact, you can even stop watching this video now. If I've done enough to convince you, then just stop watching. But I'm going to try and give general stuff. I'm not going to give any boss strategies or anything like that. But honestly, you're going to have so much more fun if you try a boss, fail miserably, do your research, you know, go and work out the boss mechanics, either, you know, through the game itself or by reading guides, etc. When I say, I mean, learn mechanics, don't learn strategies. That's the best way. So learn what the immunities are. You can do that kind of research and see what tools you have at your disposal, and I guarantee you'll have more fun when you figure it out that way. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, some people, they like taking the easy road. I mean, the amount of people who I've heard just say, oh yeah, you know, with this boss I just got Yojimbo and used Zanmato, and they're so proud of that. And for me, that's just stupid, because, you know, they've gone to all this effort to create a boss for you, and you've just taken the easy road out and just one-shotted it, and that's just not fun for me. But if that's your thing, then just go ahead and do whatever you like. I can't force you to play like that. But if I were you, stay away from kind of watching boss battles, like watching how people did it. Just try and figure it out on your own. Okay, so some things that you might want to think about once the game gets going. I mean, you can take some small notes here if you want, or just, you know, have this video archived somewhere so you can quickly refer to them again. But if I were you, you can even just have some small notes somewhere, just to, you know, either in the back of your mind or just on your phone or on some paper or something, so that when you're playing you don't forget this stuff. But I would make sure that you get Tidus' Sonic Steel weapon, because having the first strike ability is very important for No Sphere Grid. You'll often find that it's not even sometimes the boss battles that's difficult to deal with, it's random encounters. Especially later on in the game, once you get to, I would say, Thunderplane's range, then you're going to start to get to enemies that are going to be able to one-shot you, or, well, two-shot you, or petrify you, confuse you with a higher percentage, etc. So things start to get dangerous after that kind of level, and customizing first strike is not easy, and it's going to take a while. So as soon as you get a chance to get Tidus' Sonic Steel weapon, equip that. Because when you're in random encounters, you always want to have that first strike, because it gives you the opportunity to escape, which is very important. And, you know, obviously it saves you from an ambush. So I would say that's extremely important, along with initiative weapons. So if you have initiative, you won't get any ambushes, and if you have first strike, then you have first strike. So those two are definitely going to save your life when you're out in the field. So for No Sphere Grid people, you definitely want that first strike weapon. So keep that in mind. You might have seen in my commentary playthrough that I got the TKO for Waka. I think it's at a similar time to when you can get the Sonic Steel. It might even be worth farming some extra gills so you can get both. But Stone Touch is a very useful ability, although you can customize that fairly early on and it's not too expensive. But making use of the touch abilities in weapons, so Stone Touch, you know, Sleep Touch, Poison Touch, that kind of stuff, you'd be surprised at how useful that's going to be in your random encounters. Bosses, not so much, because most bosses either have a resistance or they're completely immune. So for boss battles, you're going to want strike weapons, and that's going to happen much later on. But for random encounters, especially Stone Touch, that's going to be very useful for you. So try and have that weapon around. Generally, Rikku is by far and away the most important character in the entire game, especially when you get to No Sphere Grid. In No Sphere Grid, as I mentioned earlier, Rikku can complete the entire game by herself without any help. So like I said, I've got to the final boss with No Sphere Grid Rikku only, and I've also added no overdrives to that as well. So No Sphere Grid Rikku only, no overdrives, and I made it to the final boss, and actually beat the final boss when I dropped the no overdrive restriction. So that's how powerful Rikku is. Why is she powerful? Well, you know, it's the mix overdrive that's going to really help you here. You can mix offensive mixes and you can mix defensive mixes as well. You've got lots of negative status effects at hand. You know, you've got stuff like Calamity Bomb, Hazardous Shell, that kind of stuff. These are going to give bosses negative statuses that you might not be able to give ordinarily, because you don't have the weapons for it or the abilities for it. So those mixes are very important. Later on in the playthrough, when you're up against really tough bosses, if you've got the equipment, the items to mix Hyper Mighty G, that's going to be an absolute lifesaver, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get auto life in this game, because you're not going to have the ability from the sphere grid. So all this stuff that I'm talking about, for example, when I say the Hyper Mighty G mix, you might be thinking, well, how on earth am I going to mix that? It's going to be too long for me to get into how to mix stuff. You should just find yourself a nice mix list. There's plenty on Google, and then you can do your research from there and see what items you need and how to find them. So yeah, Hyper Mighty G is going to be a lifesaver for difficult bosses, especially later on in the game, and the side bosses as well. She's got mixes like Ultra Null that gives very important stat boosts to everybody. Aside from Riku's defensive mixes, she's also got the steal and use abilities, which she's the only character that's going to have them. Again, that's why she's so important. Stealing is going to allow you to get all the items, pretty much all the items that you need in the game. Very useful for customization, and it's also going to be very useful for boss battles and that kind of stuff, because you can steal items that are going to give you all the statuses that you need, like Shell, Protect, Haste. I mean, normally you need the sphere grid to have the spells in order to get these effects, but with Rikku, all you need to do is steal the right items from the right enemies. And again, this is something you're going to have to research in your own time to find out who you need to steal what from. So the fact that she can steal and the fact that she can use items makes her almost unstoppable, because when you can use items, you can do a shitload of damage. I mean, you can use shining gems, which you can get later on in the game as a result of capturing and stuff like that. They can do a good 6,000 damage, so Rikku can still do 6,000 damage even though she's in no sphere grid, and there's no other character that can do that without using overdrives. So that's mighty impressive. I mean, even things like Poison Fangs, and we can get those in the Moonflow. They do 2,000 damage and inflict poison as well. So you've got that, and you've got things that inflict bigger damage, like Blessed Gems that do a good 8,000, and then Supreme Gems that almost hit quad 9 sometimes. So, you know, she can do a lot of damage just with the usability. But in general, obviously, steal and use is going to save your life on so many occasions. It's not going to be funny. Steal and use is going to save your life, and as soon as you get Rikku, start stealing. Some items off the top of my head that are going to be very useful is stamina tablets. You can get those at the Moonflow quite early in the game. They're going to give double HP. And you will be surprised at what Auron can survive once you have the steal and use abilities. So think of it this way, Auron has 1030 HP. You might find an armor that has HP plus 10 or something still fairly early on in the game. That gives you like 1133. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Then you get a stamina tablet and you can double his HP to 2266. You can throw Protect on him once you get to the Thunder Plains and that kind of thing. So when you think about it, 2266 HP plus Protect, that's gonna, and if he defends as well, if you press triangle, technically that's around 8,000 damage that he can already survive. So you will be surprised at just how strong Auron can be, provided he has some help from Rikku with her steal and use ability. So Auron is going to become an absolute tank in this playthrough, and he's going to be able to survive pretty much every single storyline attack in the game, provided that he has the right buffs on his side. So Rikku and Auron, they're going to make a great team. Albed potions, they're going to be an absolute lifesaver because they cure poison, silence, and petrification. I mean, okay, silence is not that useful, but poison and petrification plus 1000 HP for everyone is going to fill up everyone's HP, and it's going to protect you from those status effects. So, I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And Albed potions are easy to come by once you get to Beacon L. So yeah, Rikku. She is absolutely essential, and you're going to have to make good use of her if you want to get through the game with no sphere grid. So, yeah. Some other stuff. Once you're able to steal, is in general, as a rule of thumb, it's always a good idea to have some a good stock of items kind of in reserve, because you're always going to need them. Stuff like light curtains, lunar curtains, chocobo feathers. These can still be got quite early in the game. I mean, I think from Thunder Plains onwards, you can pretty much get everything. So, yeah, those are always going to be important. Keep a fresh supply of those. They'll help you in boss battles. Elemental protection in general is useful, and again Rikku is very helpful in this regard, because she can steal items that she can then use to customize proof armors. So having elemental armors is going to be helpful, especially maybe for the Seymour battles. So in general, just having general protection against the elements, having some proof armors around, can get you out of trouble. And I would especially have some for Rikku, because it's going to make it easier for her to steal more of them. So for example, if Rikku has fireproof, she can steal tons of fire gems in the Calm Lands from the Fire Flan. So from the Red Flan, Fire Flan, whatever it's called. So yeah, in general, just keep some elemental protection around. But one of the most important items that you can have in your inventory is petrified grenades. Petrified grenades can pretty much one-shot almost all random encounters up until the very late stages of the game. So it's very, very important to have some petrified grenades around. They are a get out of jail free card. I mean, they can sometimes be the difference between a game over and continuing on. So have some petrified grenades in reserve, definitely. So once you're kind of nearer the end of the game, or you're doing kind of side stuff, just slightly more kind of advanced level stuff that might help, stuff like evade and counter. You would have seen it in my own Final Fantasy playthrough. Evade and counter is absolutely essential. It's just something that you really want to have in your life, because when you get to the stage where your character is going to be killed with one hit, being able to evade any evadable physical attack is just too important a thing not to have. So as soon as you have the opportunity to customize some evade and counter, I would definitely use it, especially for Rikku, because she's going to be around almost all the time, and probably Auron is a good idea as well. So evade and counter is extremely useful. Later on, having the ability like Stone Strike or Death Strike could be very useful for the capturing stage. I mean, you could give some of your characters a weapon that had capture plus Stone Strike, and that's going to allow you to capture maybe 30 to 40% of the enemies in the entire game. I'd probably give it to Waka, because he can get the flyers as well, and pretty much all of the flying enemies in the game are vulnerable to petrification, so Waka will be able to capture most of those guys. And I think you can get 60 far plane wins for doing some capturing as well, so you could theoretically have someone with Death Strike on their capture weapon as well, and that would allow you to capture, I would say, about 90% of all of the enemies in the game. So Stone Strike and Death Strike are very useful as well in this challenge. So yeah, there it is. I've given you a general dump of information, just of advice really, not too much information wise, but more kind of advice on how to survive in your first Nose Figure playthrough. And like I said, I mean, if you want to know more, if you're still too scared, you're like, there's no way I can do this, but I want to check it out, then there's much more detailed guides out there for No Sphere Grid. But like I said, first of all, just literally launch yourself into it and just see what's going to happen. And you know, if it happens that you've started your game and there's a particular boss that just keeps on kicking your ass and there's no way around it, then you can always bite the bullet and just check some guides and make sure that you move on to the next stage. But like I said, in general, it's really not as hard as you think. I mean, if you make use of some of the stuff that I've told you, make sure that you always have enough items to get by. Make sure that you take a little bit of time once you get Rikku to build up a little bit of a inventory of good items. Honestly, you should be safe. And if you have First Strike as well, you shouldn't get killed too often. So yeah, if any of the veterans of Final Fantasy X have watched this, like people that have experienced with Nose Figure and that kind of stuff, if you want to share your own advice, stuff that I haven't talked about, because obviously I could have made this video 3 times as long and just talked about more stuff, but this is just the first stuff that came to my head, then feel free to help your fellow Final Fantasy X people in the comments. But yeah, I mean, just try it, seriously, just go for it, make your way through it, and if you struggle, then post a comment in this video, and either me or someone else who knows their stuff can help you out, and I guarantee you that you will have fun with it. I mean, if you love Final Fantasy X, there is no reason why you shouldn't enjoy a Nose Figure playthrough. So don't be scared of it, go for it, and have fun. Thanks for watching, take care.